Hello friends, Beck the Feminist Lawyer here. There seems to be a little confusion about this subject, so let's have an intellectual discussion about the rise of fascism in America. Part 1, Analysis according to Umberto Echo. In his essay, Unfascism, this theorist outlines 14 properties of fascism. He says that they do not all have to be present, and sometimes it's just enough for one of them to be so strong that the others coagulate around them. Listen up. See if any of this sounds familiar to you. The first one he named the cult of tradition. This is when all truth is derived from that which has always been. A lot of religions would fall into this, so Christofascism, right in line. If something is new, it's a threat, so no new thought allowed. The next one is called rejection of modernism. Now, don't get confused, because the Third Reich absolutely loved their tech. It is not about tech. It's about modernism of sociability, of societal standards of what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. Sort of interactional mores. Things like thinking that trans people shouldn't exist. That's probably one of them. Acknowledging that the gender binary is false, that science supports a gender spectrum, and that gender-affirming care for trans youth decreases the suicide rate by 70%, and that your genitals don't necessarily say anything about what your gender is. The next one is called the cult of action for action's sake. This is anti-intellectualism, irrationalism, and attacks on modern culture and science. Things like being an anti-vaxxer. Number 4 is the principle of disagreement as treason. Critical reasoning is always a barrier to action that supports unassailable tradition. So it's the idea that we should always be acting by this same document that was written hundreds of years ago by people who had never seen an AR-15, or be comporting with the ideas of religions that have existed for a long time and might be completely irrelevant to modern society. If you disagree with those things, you're a traitor. Number 5 is going to blow your mind. It's called fear of difference. This includes racism, xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, and misogyny. Wonder if that's spreading all over America. The 6th is one that really baffled me. It's the appeal to a frustrated middle class. And in America, what this looks like is the appeal to, rednecks and the uneducated, and folks that are poor, to propagate the sentiments that only enrich those of the upper echelon. So using the poor to protect the rich, using those that are being oppressed to protect the oppressors, and that is everywhere. Number 7 has Fox News written all over it. It's called obsession with a plot. There is always an enemy. There is always some sort of plot going on, some sort of conspiracy theory. It's heavily couched in xenophobia and fear of difference. And it also comes with like hyping up your enemies. So it's something like taking someone who wants to give her child gender-affirming care, calling her a groomer, or looking at a drag performer who's dressed up like Ursula, reading books to children in a library and calling them a sex offender. That kind of shit. Number 8 is right in line with the one that I just covered. This one is, it's got a little bit of a contradiction in it. It's where enemies are both inflated and degraded. So it's the people who can say, America's the best country in the world. We're the strongest in the world. We'll kick anybody's ass. And then in the same breath say, China owns America already. We're completely overrun by China. We're powerless to stop them. Well, okay. Are we the strongest country in the world, or are we powerless to stop them? Number 9 is the principle that pacifism is trafficking with the enemy. So if you don't vote for Donald Trump, you're pro-China. That's my favorite one. If you don't vote Republican, you're sleeping with the enemy. You want China to come over here and take over everything. That's one of my favorites. If you vote for a Democrat, you want China to take over the United States. Wow. The chief principle of that one is life is permanent warfare. It's about keeping people angry and uneducated. Then almost in contrast to that is number 10, which is contempt for the weak. It's not taking care of the disabled population. It's not giving a shit about sick people dying without medical treatments that they desperately need because they can't afford them. It's disenfranchising the poor. It's being racist. It's calling dudes cucks when they're feminists. Distaste for the poor. It's everywhere. Distaste for the weak. Number 11 is that everyone is conditioned to be a hero. These are the people who stand up and act like they're impatient for death. It's all of these jabronis that have been sending hate to me that have bullets and guns in their profile pictures and like, I would die for this flag and like all that shit. They constantly talk about how they want to either die or kill for their causes. Number 12 is machismo. I'm looking at you, Tucker Carlson, and your ball tanning. Number 13 is selective populism. That's when the folks in power say, if you disagree with us, you're not a real American. It's when the people in power are no longer speaking with the voice of the people. We can see this in the overturning of Roe v. Wade. The vast majority of the country did not want Roe v. Wade overturned, and yet there it went. And then the last one, again, I'm looking at Fox News. I'm actually looking at everybody on the right. This is called newspeak, which is, I loved this phrase, impoverished vocabulary and repeated rhetoric in order to limit critical reasoning. This is why you hear the same phrases come out of the folks that are defending fascism. Things like cat lady, things like calling people groomers and pedos, things like cucks and, people saying, these men in dresses, talking about China being the enemy. You're just going to hear the same shit over and over again. Parents' rights. Oh, don't shove it in our faces. There's another one. I mean, like, gay and trans people just want to be out there existing without being harassed in any way or, God forbid, jailed or executed. But apparently that's shoving it in your faces. But it's all those repeated phrases, repeated rhetoric that you're going to hear over and over again, that play like a tape in their heads. And these news outlets and politicians have realized that if they repeat the same thing over and over again, it starts burrowing into the brains of their deliberately undereducated populace. And then they will have followers among the middle class and among those that do not know how to remove themselves from a situation long enough to do some critical analysis. So there's part 1 of how America is falling to fascism. Hope you enjoyed it. Actually, hope you were horrified. Stay safe, friends. Having a nice day. Having a nice day. Having a nice day. No. Admitting that my country is falling to fascism is not a nice day. But, keep fighting the good fight.